everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy. This is Dave.
Howdy. Tonight we're doing something different, and first of all I want to thank Armando and his record store, Vintage Mio. And we got something special going on tonight. We got a special guest with us. And go ahead, Troy, why don't you introduce John?
Yeah, we're here today at the Vintage Mio record store in downtown Waco. And we're here with John Tefteller. So how's it going, John?
Good. Hi, nice to be here.
All right. Thanks for
It's a nice, cool evening. It's not super hot in Waco today.
not yet. It'll get there.
John is a premier archivist and collector of vintage albums from the 20th century. And
not albums.
Let's just call them, I don't know, what's the term you prefer to use instead of albums?
78 records.
Okay, 78 records.
I guess an album is
Album is a 33 and a third
I got
long
you.
play.
Okay,
we're
just
learning something about
Don't
here.
call 78s albums.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No,
All right,
no.
first factoid of
I'll
the
harass
night.
you throughout this if you do.
All right.
Okay.
We're excited to discuss his pursuit of vintage
Records.
and hopefully you guys will be entertained by this. And so we're going to have a few questions for John tonight, and we appreciate you meeting us here and doing this. I think people are going to like it. Call yourself the Sherlock Holmes of record collecting.
Well, people call me that, yes. I don't.
Okay.
But Sherlock of Shellac is the correct term.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it's shellac is what 78 records are made out of.
Sure. I learned that from watching your video.
You will never, ever find another with as great a collection of records as I have.
So yes, we sleuth out and search down vintage blues 78s from the 1920s and 30s that when I was younger everybody told me didn't exist anymore. And I set out to prove them wrong, and I proved them wrong multiple times. I found records that everybody said didn't exist, and I found them.
So I understand you're from Oregon, correct?
Yes.
So
Not
what-
originally, but yes.
That's where you live
I
now.
live in Oregon.
Okay. What brought you to Texas or Waco?
Records.
More records?
What always brings me anywhere is more records.
Really?
yes.
Anything specific that you're looking for while you're in Texas, and where are you going to be looking?
No, I come in for the Austin Record Convention, which is next weekend.
Okay.
And while I'm here, I do other things in and around the area looking for things. So
Okay.
that's why I'm here.
Have you ever found anything in Waco that was substantial?
Yes, but I didn't find it. People brought it to me here.
Really? Okay.
There's a guy that used to live here that had some very expensive rare records that brought them here the last time I was here. And I met him here, paid him a lot of money for them, and he went away happy.
Wow. Yeah, I bet.
I love vintage music, always have since I was very young. So my original hobby of liking vintage music has turned into a business, which we call the world's rarest records.
I see that you have a focus mostly on vintage blues records from the 20s and 30s.
Correct.
Are there any other kind of genres that you are interested in, or?
Well, it's not a matter of being interested in them. Those records from the 20s and 30s are very rare and very expensive for the most part. So I have to come up with a way to pay for them. And a way to pay for them is to buy other types of records, other genres, other eras, sell those, take the profits and buy the original stuff.
All right.
So that's what I do. So I can buy anything rock and roll oriented from the 50s and 60s, basically.
But I do buy and sell all types of records from the 20s, 30s, all the way up to the early 70s with rock and roll, rhythm and blues, surf music, girl groups, anything that is collectible from the 50s and 60s, as well as that early 1920s and 30s blues music.
So what got you started? What was the first record that you bought that got the ball rolling for you to keep pursuing this pretty much your whole life, I guess? Or how long have you been doing this?
Well, I started collecting records when I was like 10 years old, but I didn't collect blues records then. I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
My grandmother had a wind-up Victrola and she had records on it, so I played them and they were interesting. But in high school, I started selling records and buying records and all that. But I didn't start into blues records until later, like early to mid 80s.
Okay.
And
Do you remember the first record that made you a lot of money?
No, I remember the first one that I bought that I didn't know what it was, and it turned out to be really good, but I traded it away and got it back later, and that was a Mississippi Sheiks record on OK. I found for 50 cents at a swap meet in Southern California, and took it home. I didn't know what it was, looked interesting, played it, and went, oh, this is really nice. And then a guy that was in that local area knew that I was interested in vintage records of different things, knew that I had found that, wanted it, so I traded it to him for something else. And then years later, way later, I was at a friend of mine's house who's a big collector like me, and he asked me the same question you did. What was the first blues record that you got, that you dealt with? And I told him the story. I told him how I traded away. He walked over to his record cabinet, pulled out a record, walked over and handed it to me and said, well, here, you can have it back. And it was the exact same record because he had gotten it from the guy that I traded it to 30 years earlier.
So it just came full circle back to you.
Circle.
That's
and
amazing.
I still have it, and it's not going anywhere now.
So, what would it be worth, you think?
Oh, it's not super valuable. It's maybe a couple $1,000s. There are records that are way more expensive.
But the sentimental value is probably...
Yeah, well, it was like that. You asked what the first one was. That was the first one.
That's very cool.
Tell us about some of your most valuable records then, and you know, what makes them special outside? Is it just condition or rarity or the album cover or record cover, but or the label?
Watch that word album.
All right. Well, I mean, I understand that probably the label on the record is probably
sort of, but what makes them special is just they're super, super rare. They came out during the Depression. They sold very few copies. The people they were sold to were very poor African American people who could just barely afford anything, let alone a record. And then, come World War II, the whole African American community was encouraged to donate their records for the war effort. So they would send these kids through the ghettos with wagons and have them fill them up with blues records, take them down and melt them down and make the paint that goes on the tanks in World War II.
Wow.
So they become extraordinarily rare, where there's only one, sometimes two, sometimes three copies have survived. Even though they may have made 5,000 of them in 1930, we've got 3 left.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a big deal. So that was my focus, was to find those super rare records, find them in as best condition as possible, and then reissue them. I had a CD label for a while where I was reissuing them, but I kind of stopped that. But anyway, that was it.
So you would actually digitize some of these albums?
Well, digitize isn't quite the word. We would restore them because they have 80 years of dirt and grime and goo in them, and you have to clean them up and do all that. And we have a special method of restoring them that doesn't alter the music. It just brings the music back out of the grooves. And most people who do restorations on vintage records don't do it that way. And the reason they don't do it that way is because it's way too expensive to do. You take the record, you take a digital transfer, you put it up on a big gigantic screen, and then you look at the sound pattern, and groove by groove by groove, you remove each defect from each groove.
Right.
Wow.
And it takes anywhere from 8 hours to 75 hours.
So they look at you go through the histogram of that capture, and well, I used to have a program. I used to do that. I convert a lot of
Well, there's multiple ways
albums
to do it.
on my Mac, but I mean, it was just poor man's way of doing it. But you could take Audacity or one of these kind of programs, and you could go ahead and get rid of the pops and clicks and stuff like that. So it's
more than that, but yes.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I'm sure it is.
Very complicated system, and it works, but it could be 75 studio hours to do one 3-minute record.
Who does that kind of work?
My son does it.
Really?
Yeah, and there's a few other people that can do it, but most people do not do that. They put it through some filters, they move a few knobs here and there, they take away the music along with the noise, and it sounds like garbage to me.
Is he using AI now that they?
No.
Yeah, so that's no.
I mean, maybe at some point in the future, but to me, AI is so amateur now for what I would need that I don't touch it or use it.
Was there ever a record that you found that you thought, oh wow, this is going to be something? And then you found out it wasn't really worth anything.
I know what they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I can see that.
It's
I
not
was just
gonna-
wondering,
it's not
like, oh,
gonna
look
be
at this! I can't believe I found this, and you go
No.
back and you're like, that's worth $5.
No, I know what I'm looking for.
Well, are there any holy grails out there right now that you're
Yes,
still on the hunt
there are
for?
always some. I've found maybe 15 of them over 20 years, which is more than most people ever find. And there are still another 10 or 15 out there that I haven't found yet. that may or may not ever show up. We don't know.
I found the only known copy of a record by a guy named King Solomon Hill, which had never been found before, and it's a great, great record.
And everybody got to go.
So what's your process? I watched that video that Armando sent, and it was really interesting how the process of how you go and look for these albums. I think, go for it. Records.
Stay away from the word album.
You know what? I'll just go bleep, and I'll put
Put type underneath
I'll
it.
put albums. I'm going to say records, and when I say records, I'll put where it says albums. That makes sense?
I don't know, but don't put any albums in there. We don't want albums. He wants
I forgot my
albums.
question. So what's the process? I mean, do you just go to record conventions and look that way, or
I go to record conventions, but most of the things I've been discussing previously will not turn up at a record convention.
I see. Yeah.
They'll turn up
Somebody's attic,
at a
I
flea
guess.
market, an attic, a basement, a barn, out there somewhere, and you hope that they're not broken when you find them.
Yeah. And you never know. Some people probably have no idea what they have.
Most people have no idea what they have.
I went back 3 or 4 times and gave him a lot of money over that period of time. And that was probably the best single collection of records I ever got into like that.
They have no clue. It's just a bunch of old records.
What's
And those old shellac records are very fragile.
Yes.
So what is the most expensive one that you've ever
There's
sold?
lots of, sold. I don't sell the most expensive ones.
Okay,
I
okay.
keep those.
What would you process? So the one that I'm never going to get rid of this. I mean, they're just like priceless, I guess.
Well, you can call them priceless, but everything has a price if somebody
yeah.
wants to buy it. And there are people that would buy all those things, but I just don't want to sell them. I'm building an archive that's almost complete. When I get complete, I'll think about selling it.
Yeah. How many records do you have in your archive? And are they just records? So you have some albums?
I have no albums.
You have no albums.
No albums.
Wow.
Just 78s and some 45s, but mostly 78s. And how many? It's about 5,000.
Okay.
It's not a tremendous amount. I have plenty of inventory of stuff to sell, but personal blues records and things like that, about 5,000.
And do they just sit on a shelf somewhere? Do you ever pull them out and listen to
Oh, yeah,
them?
once in a while.
Yeah.
But usually it was when we were making digital files to do the reissues.
I got
That's
you.
when I play them.
So you listen to it one time and
Well, you
soak it in and then
listen to
put it
them,
back on the shelf.
clean it up, and then listen to the CD. I don't have to play the record.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
do. When Orlando comes, we put some on, but
Yeah.
I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Once they're cleaned up, they sound better anyway.
Value on this should be somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000.
Greyhound from trotting right back home.
So I guess you're sitting on a pretty stout collection of classic records, and you enjoy them, but you don't want to sell them.
Not yet.
But you talking to Smithsonian or anybody about it? Like maybe somewhere down the road?
From what I understand, the Library of Congress wants it,
Yeah.
and they actually occasionally will pay for things because I'm not giving them to them. But we haven't gotten that far. The biggest hang-up I have with all those types of places is they tend to just take things and put them on a shelf buried deep in some vault somewhere, and nobody gets access to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't really want that to happen to it, but maybe.
But I'm just curious. Where you store these records? I'm assuming it's
Shelves,
shelves.
yeah, upright,
Vertical. Yeah.
And it's very.
in the original paper sleeves, and then protected from.
What's the word I'm looking for? Like
Catalog.
air conditioned.
Oh, it's climate control.
Climate
yeah,
control.
yeah.
That's what the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, climate controlled.
Yeah.
I have a climate controlled warehouse on my property.
Any more questions, Dave?
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
let's see
it?
here.
Hey, we're fast, man. We don't mess around.
oh, okay.
We've been talking for an hour. What are you talking about?
All right.
No, we haven't.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna ask just.
Let me see, because I wrote some notes the other day. You know, you talked about Holy Grail earlier.
Yeah.
Is there one album out there? Oh, sorry, record. Cut. Let me do that over. So earlier, we were talking about Holy Grail records. Is there one out there that you would love to find more than any other
Yeah,
one?
there's two.
Okay.
There's a blues man named Willie Brown, who, if you listen to the Robert Johnson song Crossroads, he says, go tell my friend Willie Brown I'm at the crossroads and I'm sinking down. That guy made 3 records as well. One of them exists. 2 more should exist, but nobody's found them.
Yeah.
And I've been looking for them for 30 years. Don't know whether they'll ever turn up, but if they do, those to me are the most important, valuable blues records that are out there, and they're worth a lot of money. And by a lot of
Wow.
money, I mean 50 to 100 grand a piece.
I'm gonna go start looking through my grandmother's.
Yeah, well, Grandma doesn't have them. Unless Grandma was
Maybe
into
I'll
blues.
find something buried between my mom's old Lawrence Welk records.
No, if she liked Lawrence Welk, she wouldn't want Willie Brown.
Exactly. Well, she had some Frank Sinatra too. I gotta
That's
give it to her.
the same thing.
All right. I disagree.
John, thanks for hanging out with us
Okay.
tonight. You got anything else you want to say? Anything you want to tell?
No, go out there and find some rare 78s and call me so I can buy them.
How can they get a hold of you? You got a
I'm
website?
everywhere. Tefteller.com,
We'll put it on our
phone
on the
numbers,
bottom of this.
whatever. Yeah, you'll find me.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well, thanks for being here today.
You're
All right.
welcome. Thank
Dave,
you.
you got anything else
Thanks
you
a
want to
lot,
say?
John.
Thank you.
All right.
Got anything else you want to say, Dave?
We'll see you next time in the shed.
See you later.